Well, for half a century, Ottawa's Youth Services Bureau has been helping disadvantaged young people through difficult times, and part of the help they provide is inspiration. Today, it celebrates its 50th anniversary, and it's invited guest speakers to address an audience of teens and youth service providers. Lia Grimanis is one of those speakers. She's a successful businesswoman in Toronto, founder of a charity called Up With Women. She's even wearing the T-shirt. But in her teens, Lia was homeless, and Lia Grimanis joins me in the studio. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in so early.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, I guess you have to get up early to be a successful anything these days. But take us back to when you were a teenager. How did you find yourself homeless?
Well, in my situation, I had a fairly good childhood. What had happened, though, was that my grandmother had discovered that she had cancer and died within a very short period of time. And my caregivers, my guardians, became exceedingly depressed and ended up becoming violent as a result. And so the quality of living deteriorated significantly, and then things became quite violent to the point where my life was actually being threatened. I didn't know about shelters. I didn't know that they existed. I thought that my only choice, if I was to stay in Toronto, was to quit high school and live on the street. And how does a young woman live and survive on the street? I didn't know that they existed, but of course now I do. They hide. They can't be seen. That's why we don't know that there are lots of homeless young women out there.
Where did you go?
Well, what ended up happening was when the police wouldn't do anything after I called them the second time my life was threatened, I realized I needed help, and I just called an abuse hotline, found it in the front of the white pages, just needed somebody to tell me I wasn't crazy. Didn't know that they would give me anything else, but they told me about the shelters, and it was the beginning of the last major recession in the middle of the winter. Took them a few hours to find a shelter, and that day, with only the clothes on my back, I left and went into the shelter, cried my eyes out my first night. Terrified. Absolutely terrified.
Yeah. But it helped save you.
It was the beginning of the rest of my life,
Yeah.
I have to say. If it wasn't for that shelter, I have to say, I don't know if I would be alive today. And, really, it's because I had those services that I was able to pick up my life. It is incredibly difficult. When you enter into a shelter, when you become homeless, you're really broken down. It's easy to believe that you're not entitled to the life that other people can live. It's, look, especially if you've come out of abuse where you've been told over and over and over again that you're worthless. It's very difficult to pick yourself up out of that. So to have had all the services that were available to me, it was incredibly vital. That's why the Youth Services Bureau, I'm so excited to be here because they are an incredible organization. And clearly there's a need in Ottawa. 2,500 to 3,000 people go through their doors every month.
Statistically, though, are you an exception?
People would like to believe that. And I would say that the influence and the probability of failing is extremely high simply because it's incredibly emotionally challenging to go through what you go through. At the same time, when we rebuild our lives, most of us don't come back and tell the story. And when I was in the shelter, I didn't have any role models. I didn't have anyone to tell me.
So we don't really know the statistics, is what you're saying. When people suggest that people from that background, more often than not, won't have the kind of success you've had, it's because they don't know about it, not because it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And when I stood up with my neighbors because they had retaliated against the opening of a shelter, and when I said that I'd lived in a shelter and I don't know if I would be alive, and when you think of the homeless, look at my face and ask yourself, who are you turning away? They said, well, thank you for sharing, but with all due respect, you're an anomaly. And that's when I realized that I couldn't just do this alone. And so I ended up going on a hunt, and I found 17 women and 5 children, all living extraordinary lives. All were once homeless. They're a successful businesswoman, successful politician, an award-winning journalist. Amazing stories, a world champion athlete. And, we need those stories, and we need the diversity of those stories so that people can start to realize, if we're going through this today, that success is possible for them. Success belongs to everybody. And also to educate those people that there is an end to homelessness. If the services are there, people can rebuild their lives. But we need those services there, and that's why an organization like the Youth Services Bureau is so incredibly important. We need as many as we can, and this conference that they're doing is so important because they're going to be helping all sorts of service delivery organizations to improve how they deliver services to youth.
And you want to mobilize more people like you, that sort of silent group that has a similar story to tell, because the inspiration is key. People need to know what's possible, to know what's possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's just such a thrill, having gone from, technology account executive to running my own nonprofit has been quite a change, but it's been so gratifying because every day I'm working with formerly homeless women who all say, I used to have dreams and I let go of them, but now, ever since I've started the program, I can't stop thinking about my dreams. And you see them just rocketing forward. And this is what can happen with anyone as long as we start sharing our stories and really improve the services, make them as good as we possibly can, and keep them alive.
Do you have a sense of purpose that... I don't like to use fate too casually, but do you think about that? In other words, that some of these challenges were put in front of you and in your life because you would turn them into an opportunity, not just for yourself, but to create them for others?
Well, when I was homeless, I I carried around a quote with me from Jules Renard, and it was, if I had my life to live over again, I would ask that not a thing be changed, but that my eyes be opened wider. And I used to cling to that hope that one day, looking past and looking into this, I would believe and go, yeah, okay, this was all meant to do something great in the world. And I have to say, I would never want to live through that again. I would never wish this on anyone. But my entire life, since that day on that bunk bed, when I made that promise that I would come back and become successful and become a role model, every day has been dedicated to making my life into that story that will capture the imagination of those who need it, and making this program, this my organization, into something that will change lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that people will be interested in hearing from you to find, first of all, the details about how you went about starting your own business, really practical stuff, but I think even more than that, what motivated you and kept your optimism up and yourself sort of moving forward, and you're doing that even now. Really great to meet you this morning, Lia. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
That is Lia Grimanis. She's the founder of the charity Up With Women, and she's speaking this afternoon. You don't want to miss it, at a conference hosted by Ottawa's Youth Services